So what I'm going to do is kind of rant about the golden era of graffiti. It's kind of weird when people tell me that, like, I'll meet younger writers and some younger graffiti artists will, they'll ask me about those days. It's totally fine to do that. I know some people feel like, gee whiz, that's a little bit it's nostalgic for graffiti artists like us, especially when we were in the first wave. So I was among the first wave of graffiti artists, when breaking and graffiti, and when all the four elements of hip hop were basically, they were combined. That's what I'm saying. So, a matter of fact, there were not graffiti crews. So that's one thing that people got to understand. So there were not really graffiti crews. Graffiti crews didn't really start popping up, bro, until like around '83 or '84, if that. A lot of people say they were, but they weren't. We're breakdancers, man. That's really what we were. So when breakdancing popped up, like especially after the movie Flashdance. So after the movie Flashdance popped up with Jennifer Beal and there's a scene there with Crazy Legs and Rocksteady Crew, what have you, and then of course Beat Street with New York City Breakers and Rocksteady Crew. I always had a kind of a penchant for New York City Breakers. I just thought they did things really smooth. They're always windmilling. I remember I seen them on That's Incredible. They were on a rooftop on That's Incredible. That's Incredible is an old series, where they show stuff on an old variety show where they had like incredible feats there, and they were breakdancing on a roof. I remember seeing Powerful Pexter there and all that. The people really inspired me. So so there were old school crews. So there was Cosmic Force and Tidal Wave and Freeze, and we were Hypnotic Rockers, and there was Floor Masters, and then DTR Down the Rock, and all these breakdance crews that were in Chicago, having battles at in Studio Mexico and Janelle's and the Rainbow, and back in those days New Wave was kicking in real hard. A lot of people don't understand. You ever see the song Confusion, which everybody used to say the future. No, the song is Confusion. It's by New Order. It's electro new wave group. So that electro new wave was coming up, and they were mixing with funk, and so everything was combined. The dancing, that's part of the golden age. So the dancing, breakdancing, plus the new wave age, and goth, before there was goth was coming in. They called goth new wave back then. You just have new wave crews like the British Knights and all that. There were party crews were still around. There was Orange Crush. There were the Party Crew Boys. There were Buzz and Cousins and a bunch of. There's just a lot of party crews. Party Society, blah blah. A lot of gangs were actually party crews before they were gangs. The 2-6 at one point I heard were K-Town party people before they were 2-6. So. In other words, we're looking at an era where even some of it was kind of preluding gangs. You know what I mean? And also with gangs, gangbangers in Chicago are always a little bit stigmatic. So, gangbangers are racist in Chicago. And then they have an immunity to a particular person. It's like the Latin Kings will have like one black dude in every grouping. You know what I mean? I remember back in old school days, as Tony Green and Deadeye and Hey and Renee and everybody, and they had a black brother, Black Latin King named JD. All that, same thing with the Disciples and the Saints and Souls and blah blah. Vice Lords. There were Spanish Vice Lords. There were Peace Stones. There were BOS, Brothers of the Struggle. There are all kind of gangs. There was all kind of gangs that they epitomize each particular area they were at. So. But what the reason why I'm bringing up gangs is they didn't know what to make of hip hop, the hip hop movement. So when we were BTB, we used to graffiti a lot. So we used to bomb a lot. We're bombing the schools. In other words, we're bombing. I'm talking about getting a can of spray paint or big PT markers, and bombing, tagging and everything, and I had like the leader of some gangs come up to me and say, hey man, you gotta tell your boys not to be riding in our hood. And I understand that, because they were there before us, So the gangs were actually there before we were there. So all of a sudden they see a whole bunch of graffiti from a bunch of, we were doing throw-ups too. That's another thing. With huge letters and all that. So obviously they were kind of discontented about that. And they're like, what do you guys, because gangbangers didn't really understand who we were. They had to figure out who we were later on. When I say we, I'm talking about everybody in the hip-hop movement, the breakdancers, the graffiti artists, whatever. So they didn't really understand. They thought all they did is say, hey, there's another gang that's coming in our hood. Then later on, they had to figure out who we were. Say, hey, So that's how that works. So then we kind of made peace with all of us made peace with whatever game bangers that we were living by side. So, over there, like obviously, ACW and everybody. I mean, Southside ACW, they had to deal with, the 2-6 and at least make some kind of peace or relation with them so that they're not killing them, And we had to make peace with. I mean, that's a weird way to say peace, but we had to be cool with game bangers so that they didn't kill us. That's basically what it is. So if you were a graffiti artist back in those days, you had to be street smart or else you get killed. So later on, once the game bangers figured out who we were, they were cool with us. They used to watch us break dance and graffiti, and a lot of times they'd say, "Hey, help us out, do some emblems and stuff like that." So it was cool. So now back on the graffiti itself was different. This is one of the things I'm trying to get at. This is probably one of the most hardest things that younger people can't relate to. So I want to talk a little bit about two things called Cant Control. Two things. One is being the spray paint can, and control being the skill you have with the can. So basically, people don't really understand what I'm talking about, man. I mean, they don't understand it. They go, oh yeah, well, I have skill with the can, so I have Cant Control. That's not really it, man. So I'll talk to people, who get their alien cans or the cans Montana. In other words, there's cans of spray paint that are now made for graffiti. So how are they made for graffiti? Well, they're made for graffiti by what they do is they take a lot of the pressure out of the can. So they take the air pressure out of the can so that the spray paint is not flying out and you're getting all these drips. Then they have special nibs, so they're neat. So to be honest with you, man, you got to be pretty sucky if you're using those cans that they have nowadays and you have a sloppy piece. You're not a very good graffiti artist, because what it does is that they kind of take care of the Cant Control for you. So back in the old school days, you had to learn it. So we'd have stock factory caps. I still do graffiti with stock factory caps. So there used to be like a thin cap, and then we used to go and tailor make our own caps. I remember me and Zorro, cutting the stem of the caps. When I was Ice Pack, Inner City Experts in Graffiti's Hardcore Technique 8, right? That was an acronym right there. IC8, then later on turned Ice Pack, which later on turned SB. But in the original Ice Pack, was me, Rascal, Zorro, London, Artie, Echo. It was like some guys from Chem Crew and some guys from Maniacal 3, which was Maniacal 3 was Artie, Rascal, and London. I love that guy Rascal. He's a trip. I want to say something real quick about this guy's family. So Rascal was his family's they're white guys, white family, but they lived in the hood. They lived on around 27th and Holman, so they had to deal with game bangers constantly. Like I was a bootlegger, so I had to deal with all the time. I was right across the street from Farragut, so I had to deal with all the time. So sometimes we used to go to each other's houses, and I went to his house a lot. Great family, really, really accepting. They were strong people. You know what I mean? They were streetwise and smart. I used to trip out and I used to go and talk to some black brothers out there by Ogden, and they used to be, oh, well, these, because they're white, they must be weak or something. Man, no way. These are not weak people. These are strong people, man. Believe me, you'll find out. I remember we got in a fight by Diversity Harbor, me and PJ and London, Zorro, and Rascal. Rascal was thrown down, bro. He was fighting, He was out there. He was like a movie, man. He was out there fighting over there, trying to jump us by a car by Diversity Harbor. So what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't really matter what race you were. If you were in the hood, you were in your city. You were part of that inner city. So you were already street smart and tough with that. I used to go, and one of my favorite writers, and we were actually against each other for a while, was Dare, rest in peace, ACW from Southside. Used to hang out with a guy. Used to hang out with Rude sometimes, and also with Trash, another white. So there were like a white people there. I'm half white. My mother's white, So when they go to my house, they freak out on that. But the thing is that because race plays a part in gangs. Because like if you could just be a regular black teenager, and if you go past the Latin Kings, they dog you because you were black. But it was like that everywhere. The black gangs were like that too. We used to go past by Vice Lord's hood, and they used to be like, "Hey, what you guys be about?" Blah blah. I remember on Easter Sunday, they used to have these riots on Easter Sunday. They came up to me and Roski and everybody when we were trying to buy some shoes downtown. So because we were Latinos, at least they thought it was Latino. So they were all like, "Hey, you're Latinos, but what are you doing over here?" So forth. So race was a very strong theme in the old school days. A lot of people don't talk about it, but it's true. you know. But the good thing about hip hop and all that is it blurred those lines. So once you were in a crew, you would join a crew, and then you would have all kind of different people, ethics wise, you know. So we had black people, you know, Latinos, you know, Asians, whatever. We had them all in the crew. So that's one thing that gangs didn't really do that we did. We kind of united all these different races, and that could cause some trouble, man. I remember I have a, Crush and Intrude. We used to hang out with Crush and Intrude, and I remember they took me to Fess's house, Frizzari. We used to go, there used to be some spaghetti letters, real kick-ass spaghetti letters underneath the viaducts. And they said Frizzari. I wasn't who's that Frizzari guy, man? That's a guy named Fess. You know, he's a tattoo artist and airbrush artist, you know. Fess and Crush and Intrude, they took me over to his house one time, you know. And we were there, but because they would come back and forth, because Crush and Intrude were black guys, when they went to my hood, which is all Latino hood, the kings would try to jump them and blah blah blah. And that they knew they weren't gang bangers. They just did it because they were black, you know. So in other words, the gangs were still racial, but the graffiti crews and such were not racial. You know, we were doing the opposite. So we were bringing in people of different colors and different cultures into our crews. And, as kids, we'd go to each other's houses. We'd see these discrepancies between different cultures and races, which was a good thing, because it had a good cultural exposure for us. I remember we used to go to Crush and Brutanos, downtown, and, we used to steal a lot. We would buy a couple things and steal stuff all the time. We were poor kids, man, a long time ago, like in 1988, we had a battle with ACW crew, which was cool. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because that's the way battles should be. So they did a piece on George's Hot Dogs, which was on 26th Street. This guy Greek, his father owned that place, George's Hot Dogs. And so there was Casper was a really good character artist. He had somewhat similar characters to GTC. GTC crew, Rican and his buddies out there by 18th Street. And Casper's a pretty badass character guy. So they had him, Casper. He did a character, and I think Dare was with him, and Devious. All these other guys are old school HCW from, the South Side, not the North Side, not Curly and those guys, but I'm talking about the South Side. Old school HCW from them. And we had a battle, so we'd be crossing each other out on the line, going to Kedzie Stop, California, Western, all the Blue Line, Douglas Blue Line, and on doing that. And also having a peace battle. So they did a piece and we did a piece. Now that was 1988. I did a piece with the Grim Reaper and some bunnies, cutie bunny characters. It was really, the people who did that piece was really me, Sal, and Roski. I did a lot of the stuff, but Roski and Sal helped out with, I was colorblind. I've always been colorblind. So without them helping, who knows how that would have looked, So it came out well. I can't remember who won the battle, whatever, but that's not the point. The point is that no one was killing each other. Nobody was chasing each other with baseball bats or fighting. We were just crap talking, And Dare, rest in peace. Dare would come to my house. I had to explain this, man. A matter of fact, he turned later on to like, I think it was a D or something, but that was a way later on. Then he got out of that. But he would come to my house. He wanted to go drinking and stuff. Go pick me up in a car. Sometimes pick up PJ or whatever, and then pick me up from my hood. Despite the fact that we were like in kind of like warring, battling crews, so you know what I mean. Just go drink with this guy and all that, go talk to him and his sister Julie Capucci and all that, and then go pick up Rascal Balls. He used to call Rascal Balls. Go pick him up and we just go party. So what's the difference here? So really, what it is that so we're talking about because I was BTB, was HCW and all that. So even if we were against each other, crossing each other out and all that, we're still partying together. The trip out used to call it BTB. Dare used to say brazers that bite. Big titty bitches, brazers that bite. BTB, and we used to call them Chapter 13. We used to call them chapstick and all that. So we were talking shit to each other and all that, but we weren't fighting. We were actually hanging out. We still had that love for each other. We had that love and respect for each other. So we're out there doing that. So that's pretty much gone. So nowadays when they battle each other, it's like they're gangs. Now a lot of people, they say they don't tag bang. They do tag bang because if they're out there, they could cross over each other's wall. And okay, if you had to do that, you got to do that, whatever. But peace, battle it out. They're not doing it. They're going out there and fighting each other. We had a battle later with CMK. That Johnsky and A lot of his guys know him and everybody. They were with us. They were BTB at one time. Then of course BTB was always having a civil war. We always fought with each other a lot, BTB. So you know, we ended up having a battle with CMK. But once again, you know, it was a respectful thing. There was no fighting with her. You know, I always respected Johnsky. Johnsky, to me, you know, and I've said this a lot. You know, I'm not holding a dude or anything. I'm just saying it's the truth, bro. Like, there's two artists that I really, really respect in the world, in the whole world, because of their talents. Because I'm not a guy. I see art teachers. I hope this doesn't piss people off, man. But I see people who teach art. I'm not joking about this. This is just me, by the way. It's my opinion. And they teach art, and they don't really know how to draw. They don't know anatomy. They know the history. They know all that, but they don't know the anatomy. They don't know how to. They're not very good technical artists themselves. Now I respect the aspect of them teaching the history of it. But if you're going to be teaching art and you're going to have a student that's vastly talented, how do you expect to get that guy's respect? Unless you can, you don't have to be better than the person, but you have to be at least well enough for them to say, hey, you know, this guy's good at what he does. You know, so. When I get back to somebody like Slang or Johnsky, the Slang is very good, man. Like and around, like if you compare Slang has a very broad overall skill, you know. So I remember going to Chinatown Hall of Fame, and you could see his pieces there. I mean, really, to be honest with you, it was the Feds piece, the Federation, the Feds, you know, Orko, Slang, and his posse people, you know, Trickster. Especially Trickster, Sling, and Oracle, that trilogy of graffiti artists. When you go to the Chinatown Hall of Fame or go to the Wall of Sin, their pieces stood out, bro, because they had a sense of professionalism about them. So they were neat before they were neat caps. This goes back to Cant Control. See, when we used to use Cant Control, we used to make our own caps and just learn how. It was like playing pool. You know, if you're playing pool, you know, and you shoot, you got to know how much pressure to put. Or you know how sharp your shot got to be. So that's the way it was with us. When we use a can of spray paint, if you get too close to it, it comes out. If you linger, it drips. So you got to do a fast cut. You do your outside cuts. You do your inside cuts. You do double cuts. We used to get a can of cap and drill a hole in it to make skinny caps. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we used to do that were not. They're extinct. These techniques, these true can control techniques, are now extinct because companies in Europe and all that. They made their cans with less air pressure, and they already have neat caps. So you don't really have to be. You don't really. They go, what's the difference? I'll tell you what the difference is, bro. If it's like you know, neo graffiti, which I call all modern graffiti neo graffiti. So in other words, if I go to the Wall of Sin and I point out a piece done by Orko and Slang at the Wall of Sin, and then I go and I see another very neat piece and all that done by somebody else, there's no hating in it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, the new pieces are better than our pieces. Yeah, you are technically better than the pieces that, say, me and Fess and Slang and Orko did in, you know, 88, 89, you know, 90, 93, something like that. You know, so your new graffiti is technically better. It's neater. But look at what it is. It's practically airbrushing, honestly. So you get neo graffiti. You go buy yourself some fancy cans with the nibs. So you know, you're not gonna have drips unless you stand there like an idiot. You're gonna have drips. Everything's already neat for you. You can switch your caps to get whatever desire you want. So we didn't have all that. We had to invent. We had to innovate and make that ourselves. So of course, if you look at, you know, it's kind of odd too because some of the old graffiti still surpasses some of the new graffiti. Strangely enough, you know, even with technique. So the thing is that we had to learn Cant Control. Now the new guys go, oh, we have Cant Control. You don't got Cant Control. You have Cant Control if you give up your caps and give up those cans and go to Home Depot, buy like an American Accent or Krylon and use a stock factory cap and do your whole piece. Do your entire piece with just stock factory caps. Then you'll have Cant Control because you will be forced to learn how to use it. That's it. Okay, so there's no way to get around it. You know. However, Cant Control is no longer necessary. Your neo graffiti guys are going to whip our asses, whip the old sky guy, whip our old school piece asses because we don't have the tech. That's like me getting an axe and I'm going against a guy with a chainsaw, and the guy go, okay, you old school cat, go knock down that tree. Now you can knock down that tree nice and neat, but the guy with the chainsaw, because he got new technology, is going to knock it down. That tree's going to go down nice and it's going to be neater. That's it, because technology has replaced the aspect of Cant Control. That's how that works. So, I'm not, you know, I don't hate new graffiti. I do like it, but I don't get the same excitement. Like if I, you know, get a book like Subway Art or Spray Can Art, and I look through it, and I, you know, see a piece from the Chrome Angels or somebody, that's exciting. You can actually feel the excitement. And one of the reasons why that is because it's It's golden age graffiti. You can tell it's graffiti. You know, nowadays, nowadays it looks like airbrush, bro. I mean, it still looks great. Don't get me wrong. I love a lot of new graffiti. I really do. But the thing, and you still got to have a lot of skill to do good graffiti. I'm not saying you don't have to have skill, but boy, does it make it easier. I mean, you can't deny that. It makes it tremendously easier. So, the pros and cons about it is that you could go to LA, New York, Chicago, see this. You see these guys do these realistic, hyper realistic portraits with the new cans. That's great. You know, it looks really. I'm not lying. It looks wonderful. It's great. However, it does lack the feeling of graffiti. It does. You don't look at it and go, "Oh my God, it has that same, pizzazz that the old school graffiti had." Now you can go see an old portrait that's not as great from old guy using stock caps, and it does have that pizzazz because you can tell that it's a spray can. It's graffiti. Nowadays, the new spray cans are so similar to airbrush. That's exactly what they look like. It looks like you got an airbrush, you did a whole piece with an airbrush. That's what it looks like. And in some respect, you did, because the cans are not the same. They are not the same cans that we use in the early 90s and 1980s. But it's part of the evolution. It's part of new graffiti. Now, some people say, what is the production wise? What is the anomaly in it? What is the negative aspect of the phenomenon? Well, I want to explain something to you. Look at breakdancing, okay, and DJing and the other four elements. Now, when it comes to breakdancing, no one cheated. See, the breakdancers nowadays can do stuff we couldn't do in our wildest dreams back then, but they didn't cheat. So that was kind of like baseball and weightlifting. Back in old school days, it evolved naturally, and that's the point. It evolved naturally. Graffiti, the pet peeve that I have with graffiti is graffiti did not evolve naturally. Now, if people were still using stock caps, people go, "Oh, but it'd still be sloppy." No, it wouldn't. What would have happened was that the Cant Control, the people who use Cant Control, would be so highly innovative and so great that they'd be able to do almost the same things that you see now that look so neat, but they'd be able to do it with the cans they had then. It would just have naturally evolved, just like breakdancing naturally evolved, but it didn't go that way. A matter of fact, graffiti kind of went the same way DJing went, where you were using techniques or Gemini's turntables, whatever, scratching, whatever. Now all of a sudden, all the editing machines came in, the beatbox machines, the computer editing and all that came in, and it supplanted old school DJing. So now you don't see the old school DJing. What you see, you start to see nothing but editing, computer editing with the music. So the technology of DJing got rid of the lost. It made true DJing a lost art. And DJs know what I'm saying. They know what I'm talking about when they say that. So DJs have to make an effort to go get original stuff and go about things the original way, because they want to preserve that culture. Graffiti art, it's not that way. People are still looking for that easy route. I want to get the, whatever I want to make, my piece look as good as it can. So I'm going to go take the easy route. I'm going to get these cans that do this thing. Hey man, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But what you should do is take some time to explore what you can do as an artist. Explore what your true skill is. Not being dependent on those fancy caps and those cans where the air is reduced pressure, all that. Aren't you curious about what your real level is, your real skill level? So going back to some artists I was talking about, I would ride the blue line. I would see all the feds. I talk a lot about the feds because when I seen their pieces, they influenced me a lot. They had a very you felt excited when you seen them. I remember Puerto Rican scene rooftop pieces. I did quite a few rooftop pieces on the Douglas Blue Line. Out there with Node and Menace and all that. And we'd jump off the line to train station and go on somebody's roof and do a piece. Well, if you had all stars, you run on the tracks, your feet would hurt because they had these rocks. You had to wear thick shoes like Pumas or Adidas, for that your feet didn't hurt when you ran. You jumped the line. Back in the days, everybody was skinny. We go jump the line and squeeze our asses through the California stop. Not pay or anything. We didn't pay to get on the CTA. We should just jump on there. And we used to do trains. So I remember at one incident where at Sheridan, and I seen Pest from Car Crew, and Pest used to do a lot of throw-ups on a double-sided tunnelway by Sheridan, and do throw-ups there. So we were some of the first guys to do throw-ups in the South Side, by the way. The whole letters, not just tagging the whole letters, not flare tagging, just the whole letters. And we had a big influence from the North Side too. South Side, North Side. And I remember seeing Warp, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles piece he did out there. Warp used to do there was a lot of rooftop pieces. Antic, Answer, East and Agent. You know, me, Fast, Casper, gee whiz, the list goes on. You know what I mean? Just old school artists. GTC out there in 18th Street a lot. You know, Rican and a couple other guys out there. So yeah, everybody was innovating. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the innovation is gone nowadays. I remember one of the worst things that ever happened to graffiti. Here it goes to me. Is 3D styles. Yeah, those 3D styles were. First of all, let me explain something to you about 3D styles. Okay. Now, if you were to go get a commercial art book, like a book of commercial art, like, you know, from the 1950s or 60s, they had that before then. So they had regular, it wasn't wild style. They had regular letters, but the same techniques were there. So that 3D style that Dame did, that was already done in the 1960s by commercial artists. So there's something going on here. And the rise, the reason why Dame is extremely good at that. She's still one of the best at that 3D style. But that freaked people out. It hit the culture, the world culture so hard, that particular style, because they thought that was the ultimate. Gee whiz, that's an ultimate test of my skill if I could do 3D letters or whatever. But people never really got out of it. It was like a vortex. So what happened with doing the 3D style was everybody was trying to be like Dame from Germany, you know? And once again, that's in total collision with new caps, because if you had stock factory caps, you try to do a 3D style with pure old school stock factory caps, they would be extremely hard to do. So you can trust me that they were not doing that. Even if they said they were, they're lying to you. They're not doing that. I know how it looks. So they were doing that with the neat caps and the new cans that were coming out, and that's fine. But that 3D style is part of the graffiti evolution, you see. So that's how that went. Now, technically speaking, now that graffiti. It has such a an impact on the graffiti culture that what occurred was that it changed the way people thought of styles, and I'm going to talk about that in the next segment. On the segment that's just talking about 3D and 3D styles, you should check that out, because what I have to say about that is really important as far as the way styles are innovated today.